My biological son and me helped pay for my stepdaughter's wedding, but then she decides to backstab both of us in the most toxic way you can imagine. After we paid over $30,000, she decides, hey, by the way, guys, you're not invited to the wedding. Yeah. So, my son helped me to pay for my stepdaughter's dream wedding. Me too. She then disinvited both of us from the wedding just a week before, as we looked cheap apparently. We're good enough to pay for the wedding, but not good enough to go to it. How nice. You might think I'm joking or exaggerating. I wish I was, then it wouldn't hurt quite so much. Now, is it just me, or is my stepdaughter an absolute cow? I'm so furious about this, you have no idea. But before I continue, please do like and subscribe. Hi. Thank you. Well, my name's Tom, and I just turned 50. Only now has my hair turned gray, and it's all because of my stepdaughter, Cherry. I have a very hardworking son, Steven, who I'm proud of. He's 25, the same age I was when he came into my life. He's a conscientious and looks after his money very wisely, or should I say that he did before all this went down. He's not flashy with his cash, even though he could have afforded to be, I suppose. He's a carpenter just like me, and is recently investing in a decent work van to get a better image to his customers, but he was totally happy in his scruffy old work van, and he would have happily run it to the ground if my stepdaughter had not kept on taking the mickey out of him. It makes me so mad, you know. Perhaps because Steven was an only child for much of his life, it meant that when I remarried and inherited a stepdaughter, he was just so overjoyed to have a sibling that he's been far too good to her and looked after her far too much for her own good. Or even his. She's 2 years younger than him, so she is the baby of the family and our put-together family, but not innocent and not deserving of the kind of attention she's been given, in my opinion at least. My son Steven's fiancee, Kathy, is a very down-to-earth girl like Steven, and a pleasure to spend time with. I hope that they'll one day give me grandchildren. Well, like me, they don't care what they look like, they're kind and always think of others. They would like a simple wedding themselves, but have to postpone it as my stepdaughter asked Steven for money, and he selflessly agreed to fund her lavish dream wedding. Kathy didn't even look put out by it at all, bless her soul. It's not fair, is it? It really isn't. Now you may see why I'm so riled up over this to begin with. If it was just this, then maybe it wouldn't be too bad. It's my son's choice, of course, and if he wants to be kind and generous and Kathy doesn't mind, then it's not my place to say anything, but it gets worse. Oh, so much worse. My blood's boiling just thinking about the cheek of it all, and this is just not me. I've even been pushed to above my limit. Please tell me, would you be the same? Let me know in the comments. I'm right to be angry. Is this a normal and justified reaction, do you think? My stepdaughter is so far up her own backside, I'm surprised she doesn't waddle like a duck. I do love her, of course, as though she was my own daughter. I think it'd be much easier if I didn't, though. I should not expect any decency from her. Then perhaps I should not be so shocked or disappointed. She's blasé about how much this has affected people and how she's torn the whole family apart. And her fiancé, well, I don't know so much about him, except that he always looks well-groomed. Cherry obviously loved that about him. He has a group of friends with fancy girlfriends. Cherry has claimed as her crew. I guess she used him to get in with the crew she desired, to emulate the people she looked up to and desired to be like. First of all, let me explain how I see it. My stepdaughter is one of these people that in her head is rich and deserves the best of everything. She looks down on people that are no different from her, and it absolutely just infuriates me. She doesn't work, so she should not expect to live a high life. All she cares about is that people think she's rich and that she's rubbing shoulders with rich people and having photos taken with rich people in luxurious places. It's all fake and false, and this dream wedding has brought out the absolute worst in her. But I never saw this coming. It's such a joke, but not funny in the slightest. Steven paid 50% towards Cherry's wedding, and then I put in another 20% on top, as I felt guilty that he was being so kind and I wanted to be more like him. I wish I hadn't now. I wish I hadn't supported him. If I could turn back time, I would have told him to hang out onto every single penny he had worked so hard for. And I would have held on to my money as well. I would have told him that she doesn't deserve his kindness. I would have been protecting my son, protecting myself, and protecting her from herself. She's lost her whole family over this after all, and I'm pretty sure that I'll never ever forgive her. It's the final straw, the one you could say broke the camel's back, you know? Update number 1. Well, I'll tell you what. My son Steven certainly got his revenge, though. Oh yes, it was a little bit surprising, to be honest with you. I didn't think he had it in him. I didn't teach him to act like this. It just goes to show how far she has pushed him to reach his limit like this. So, now the picture scene. My stepdaughter and her future husband were at the grand wedding that we all paid for, eating their canopies and drinking their sweet champagne with the projector that my son Steven set up for her. It started rolling. But wait. Please let me give you some background to what drove him to this point, and then you can tell me if you think it was justified or not. See, my stepdaughter has been spoiled rotten over the years, and I guess that I'm pretty partly to blame. And also Steven as well, but my wife is the worst for it. Cherry was her only baby. She did not inherit Steven as a stepson until he was an adult himself. He was 18 and Cherry was sweet 16 when I married her mother, but not so sweet. Cherry thinks that she's entitled to be, well, the very best of everything, and the little money that she has is just wasted on daily beauty treatments and the latest fashion trend. See, she's always clothes shopping, carrying those fancy cardboard bags with string handles. Then, when she cannot put food on the table, she just comes running back to her mother for an endless cash handout. She will only ever eat at the very best exclusive restaurants and order the most expensive things on the menu with no intention of ever putting her own hand in her own pocket. She drinks expensive coffee in coffee shops and overpriced cocktails in cocktail bars. She has not worked a single day in her life. She was lazy at school and she was lazy at home when it came to helping out her mother with his housework and chores. Oh, and please don't get me started on how long it would take her to get ready in the morning and in the evenings for a night out. Most nights hogging the bathroom and clogging up the plug hole, if you know what I mean. Yuck. It makes her so ugly in my eyes thinking about it. For her to be so focused on herself and how she looks to others, how can she call us cheap looking? Insinuating that we're poor or beneath her when she without us would, well, not have her fancy-pantsy wedding. Perhaps if we had not spent all of our hard-earned money on her lavish wedding, then we would maybe have had some money left to spend on our wedding outfit so that we could have pretended to be as fancy as she pretends to be. But come to think of it, she didn't even know what we had spent her plan to wear for her special day. She didn't even bother to ask. Not that it matters now, but she just assumed that we would look scruffy when we might have actually spent quite a bit on our wedding guest outfit. I guess we'll never know, will we? But how very dare she? You know, the sad thing is that I would have gone to her wedding and thought she looked beautiful even if she was dressed in a bin bag. And so would my son Steven, so why weren't we welcome with the open arms at her wedding no matter what we would have looked like, or what dress that she had? We had put ourselves out to pay for her dream wedding, and she has had the cheek and audacity to disinvite us from the wedding just a week before? Can you believe it? Would Cherry have put herself out for us, or anyone for that matter? Oh no, of course she wouldn't have. It's also incredibly insulting to my son Steven's fiancée Kathy, as her modest wedding has been put on her back burner because of all this. How dare she? I mean, who even does that? It's not like she was even trying to keep the numbers down, which I could maybe have understood, but the cost was no issue to her, with our money funding 70% of the whole silly saga. What an absolute cow. She is, right? Isn't she? It is not just I thinking that, is it? I'm beginning to doubt myself, but am I the a-hole here is what I want to know. So hit me up with comments, please, and put me out of my misery. And who are these guests of hers that would have looked down at their noses at us? They weren't exactly royalty or celebrities, just other posers and wannabes like Cherry. Materialistically minded people with zero spiritualness. I guess. Are people really that shallow? Part of me thinks that they would not have given two hoots what we look like. It was all in her head after that, and even if they were judging us, who cares? I bet she didn't tell them that we had helped her to pay for the wedding and expected nothing in return except perhaps, I don't know, maybe an invite. Of course not. Perhaps if she had, we wouldn't have made out the poor relations that we are, well, not. Well, the truth certainly came out in the end, didn't it? And the truth hurts, especially when it comes as such a shock and such a happy day. The best day of your life, even. Well, that didn't quite work out as planned. Cherry, well, rocky foundations and all that, or should I say building a house on sand? Do you think that it was the photographs on her special day that she thought we might spoil the look of it? The photographs were taken by the expensive photographer we helped pay for. The photographs that now won't even be developed. Oh dear, I don't mean to be unkind, but I bet this marriage wouldn't even have lasted if they have tied the knot on that day. The amount that was spent on the wedding is most certainly not a reflection of the love between Cherry and her fiance. True love doesn't need to be showy. Aside from her only being interested in herself, of course, she clearly only wanted him because his family appeared to be upper class, but they weren't even wealthy enough to help them pay for the wedding, as we did so, goes figure. All frills and no game, is that the right purpose? Well, they were probably just as fake as she was. How sad, fools fooling each other at their own game. Well, guys, hit me up in the comments section. I think I might have gotten my panties in a twist here, if you know what I mean. And no, I'm not a cross-dresser, or am I? Maybe then I could understand the disinviting to Cherry's wedding. If I was to upstage the bride in a nice dress on her big day, stepfather of the bride, now that would have made headlines, wouldn't it? Not in a good way, I suppose. I mean, I think she thinks the glossy magazines will want to do a glossy pullout spread when she's a nobody. I'm telling you, a nobody who's pretending to be rich and classy. Update number 2. Oh, and I bet you're wondering about her actual father. Well, that is quite the story. And perhaps why she is the way she is, but I'll let you be the judge of that. So her father did not give two hoots about her and never had two pennies to rub together, as they say. Actually, he did have coins as they were thrown into his scruffy hat as he begged outside of the train station, but don't tell Cherry I told you that. She'd be mortified. She says that he never begged a day in his life and that he was a musician. Ah, okay, if you say so. She was ashamed of him, and I guess that's why she has to make such a show about being anything but scruffy and poor. I mean, I feel sorry for her. I do. It makes sense that she wants to be seen as more than a beggar's daughter, but no one has ever judged her by her father. She has loving people all around her, and yet she has treated them all like absolute rubbish. Well, karma's coming for you, as they say, and she's certainly getting her comeuppance now, don't you think? Perhaps in the future she'll be a better person from this hard lesson, but I truly doubt it. There's no hope for her in my opinion. They may want to feature the story in their magazine. If they hear about what my son Steven did at her wedding, I mean, now I think she has the fame that she always wanted, except now everyone knows her as the shallow, selfish cow that she really is. And her wedding? Oh yeah, it was ruined. People walked out on her before she even said her vows. And when her true colors were shown, or should I say broadcasted in full-blown technicolor, let me tell you about Steven's mother. She was a good woman. She never drank, never smoked a day in her life. Well, she shouldn't have been taken away from us so young. I would have never married again if she hadn't died, and I said I never would even when she did die. We were a happy little unit, Me, Meg, and Steven, and those memories can never be surpassed. Let me tell you about my second wife, Cherry's mother. Now, I have to be careful in case, God forbid, she ever reads this. But no, I don't think she will, unless this thread goes, well, viral. She's mildly better than Cherry. No, not just kidding. She's not like her when it comes to money. But I think she tries to make up for being a single parent and her dad being rubbish and overcompensates with her generosity, which has never been appreciated by Cherry. Until she married me, of course. And as much as I disapproved of my wife's soft-touch approach with her daughter, I was never brave enough to speak up. Now I wish I had. Now I think I'm going to have to speak with my feet and leave my marriage. I wish I had not let it come to this, but I think that's the only way now. Too much damage has been done, don't you think? A week before the wedding, update 3. Well, so a week before the wedding, Cherry sends us a text out of the blue. Yes, you read that right. She didn't have the decency to talk to us face to face like adults and explain it to us, but how could she? It's unexplainable after all. It still doesn't make sense to me. How did it even make sense to her? And she copied and pasted the same message to both of us. How lazy is that? It speaks volume, doesn't it? Here's our delightful text after 35,000 euros was spent on her. Hey Terry, hey Steven. Just to let you know that I would have loved to have you at the wedding, but as you know, I've gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that it is very luxurious, and I'm afraid that your presence threatens to detract from that. I know that you'll understand what I mean. No hard feelings, man. With love from bride-to-be, Cherry. XOXO. There's no love there, and do you think her fiancé knew or approved of that pitiful text message? Should I blame myself? I mean, if I had not married, then my dear son Stephen would not have such an evil stepsister thrust into his life. And before you ask, no. My second wedding did not cost hardly anything. Just some bread and butter for sandwiches at a reception at my late mother's house. We certainly didn't have to borrow any money for it. We did not live beyond our means, and it's funny how, now that I think of it, when I say borrow, you would think that Cherry has had an arrangement with us to pay back the money that Stephen and I surrendered to her, but, well, of course not. She had no intention of paying us back a penny. I mean, how could she? She doesn't make any money. She just spends it and spends it very well. So shameful. We know that now, and she knows that, so who's the mugs? Us, of course. More fool than anybody. Well, fool us once, but not twice, I say. Lesson learned, painful but memorable. I'll never let this happen to me or anyone that I care about ever again. It's totally out of order, isn't it? I've always prided myself on keeping the peace and keeping people as happy as I can. It's nice to be nice, you know. I guess Stephen must have inherited that trait from me. It shouldn't have been a bad thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely honor in doing that right thing. There always will be. I stand by that for sure. The important thing then is, who do you do good things for? You. Therefore, you need to be selective, I think. If you take one piece of advice from my sorry situation you found myself in, that should be it. Think about it. If you do good for a bad person, not only are you hurting yourself, but you're also preventing a good person from having your help. It's not always easy to spot someone that's undeserving of your help. I mean, after all, if they're anything like Cherry, you probably have a reason to feel sorry for them. They know that, and they'll play on that for sure. They play the victim card, and if you're like me, a people pleaser, you'll play the hero and come to their rescue. In your gut, you will know you're being taken advantage of, so hey, listen to your gut. Plus, I wish I had, and I'm going to encourage Stephen to do the same in the future. Too little too late though, isn't it? A surefire way of sussing out if someone's deserving of your help is to show in their gratitude or lack therefor. In this case, the fact that she's never offered to pay us back and has disinvited us to her wedding are telltale red flag signs. I think, but they came too late to help us, didn't they? We'll never see our money again. It's gone. Were the signs there that we could have looked out for? Are there red flags you should have looked out for? Yeah, probably. If I knew, perhaps I would have made better choices. I think we should have just been firm and said no, to be honest. Good people don't ask for anything or expect anything. Bad people are always looking for what they can get. Cherry did not need a lavish wedding, did she? She just wanted one. We should have told her, if you want it that bad, then earn the money by working hard and saving up. Then you can pay for it yourself. If you're too lazy to do that, then your wedding will be a reflection of what you can afford. It's that simple. That's being true to yourself. Well, it's a piece of paper at the end of the day. A declaration of love between two people. It should not be about showing off, keeping up with the Jones, or having an Instagram-ready lifestyle. I mean, come on. That's all fake glitz and glamour, and all that glitter is simply not gold. Update number 4. Oh boy, strap your seatbelts in for this one. My son feels heartbroken, of course, and feels betrayed by his stepsister's behavior. I do too, and I feel responsible for allowing it. Now that he's gotten his revenge on her, I also feel partly bad for Cherry, but I don't want to. She got what she deserved, and if I show her I feel bad, she's going to continue to have power over me and take advantage. Not to mention, it'd be disrespectful to my son after, well, he's lost so much and been so brave to stand up to her. What do you think? Is it okay to turn my back on Cherry after she's done this to us? After all, she has turned her back on us by disinviting us to her wedding. Well, guess what? It was not just her guests that left the wedding in disgust. When her true colors were shown on the projector at the wedding, the groom left before they said their vows, and she had not seen him since. The only problem is that she's back living with me and the wife now. The wife is barely speaking to me as she feels that I could have stopped Steven from absolutely wrecking her big lavish wedding day. All that money was spent by us and she didn't even get married. In the end, in fact, it was the worst day of her life. Apparently a very expensive one, don't you think? So now, although Steven's probably happy enough, well, she's not happy. And I'm okay, I suppose. My blood boils over the whole situation. I'm tempted to move out, as being around my wife means being around my horrible stepdaughter. It seems that the only way of really getting rid of my stepdaughter, short of killing her off, and God knows I've been tempted to, is just to leave my wife. Then I would never have to deal with this Cherry again and her dramas. Is that too drastic? Is that throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak? Let me know what you would do in the comment section. I mean, I think my wife is close to throwing me out anyways. The tension in the house is unbearable. Steven and Kathy have offered to have me stay with them, of course, lovely as they are, but I need to get on my own. This isn't a temporary tiff. It's the end if I stick to my guns. I didn't know what Steven planned to do, but even if I did, I can honestly say I would not have stopped him. I'm not usually like, well, what did they say, an advocate of revenge. An eye for an eye, it normally creates more misery. Sure enough, it did in this situation too, but Cherry deserved to have her rudeness called out, and her guests spoke with their feet, as did her fiance. Steven did them all a favor, I think. She's no longer living a lie and fooling them. She's no longer taking advantage of Steven or me, and will never give her another penny of our hard-earned cash. If my wife can't see that Cherry has brought this all on herself, then I may have to walk away for my own peace of mind. I've quite gotten used to the idea of being single again at my age. Not to date again, but simply to be able to do as I please when I please. No more driving my wife and Cherry around, picking up people that've been drinking. No more watching trash on TV and clearing up after other people. I just want to be responsible for myself. I might buy a van and live like that. Cherry would hate it, but it'd make me happy. I'd finally be free. What do you think I should do? I and my son have decided to move and just focus on our happiness. Update number 5. Final update posted by OP. Alright, so what happened on the wedding day? Yes, Cherry and her fiance were getting ready for their speeches apparently. I'm not sure who she was expecting to speak to, as I and Steven were disinvited and I told you about her real father. He certainly never got an invite in the first place. She wanted family only. Oh, the irony, when we're the closest she has or had to family and we didn't meet the cut. The family she thought she was gaining has turned their back on her, quite rightfully so. Anyways, I don't know what she was expecting to see on that projector screen, but it wasn't what they all saw. Her guest, her fiancé, and her. Picture her there for a moment before her mask was pulled off, before the comfortable fluffy red carpet was pulled out from beneath her perfectly manicured toes. She was the belle of the ball, wasn't she? The center of attention, just as she'd always wanted to be since she was a little girl, I guess. Her overpriced, one-of-a-kind designer dress made of pure white silk with pearls hand-stitched tirelessly, with her prom queen hair curled and bleached with streaks of honey blonde and Hollywood makeup that made her look absolutely flawless, when she was anything but. Ruby red lipstick and red soles on her 2,000 euro shoes to be worn just once, and a bouquet of fragrant, fresh flowers, carefully curated and designed, and, well, that would not have looked out of place on a princess at a Windsor castle. All of that perfection paid for by us and destroyed by us. Well, by Steven, my son, in the few minutes that it took to project her flaws onto that large white sheet. Stains that can't be washed off with bleach. Cracks that can't be papered over with foundation. Things that can't be brushed under the carpet. Her true core now cannot be unseen with, well, revealed in all its putrid colors. She was horrified, mortified, and hopefully ashamed as herself as she watched the videos Steven had painstakingly added together. Well, and she saw the reaction of the people around her. The people she had tried so hard and desperately to impress. Well, her mascara ran down her face, not waterproof after all that, and she, my stepdaughter Sherry, was not as motionless as you might have thought, see? My son Steven had secretly filmed her demanding money from us again and again, and explaining all the lavish things she must have at her wedding. He made a mortgage of her with the clips of the spoiled brat from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. OMG. I think she was called Veronica Salt and turned into a blueberry or something like that. There were screenshots of the huge amount of money we transferred to her. $25,000 from Steven and $10,000 from myself. Followed by screenshots of her telling us that she didn't want us to come to our wedding after all, because we would make her look cheap. He also filmed clips of her bad-mouthing her other guest and her fiancé of all people. Things that I was even shocked to hear she had said. The guest had all booed her out and walked out before the ceremony, and there was no first dance, no cake cutting, and certainly no honeymoon, no confetti was even thrown, nothing. Her happy ever just fizzled out like a damp firework, and the video revelations were the only fireworks set off on that day. Well, we should have got some money back for those unlit fireworks and the DJ who we sent home as soon as he arrived. But it doesn't work like that, does it? A lot of people made a lot of money out of us for doing very little. A lot of very fancy and no doubt tasty food was made, but never served or even eaten. The few people who left after the mass exodus had lost their appetite for some reason, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. Okay guys, I'll be completely honest with you. We've seen a lot of Bridezilla stories, we've seen a lot of toxic characters, mother-in-laws, you name it. We've seen some pretty bad people. But this person might take the cake, and who I'm talking about is clearly the stepdaughter, right? I mean, she enabled every red flag I could ever even think to enable. The fact that OP and the son paid over $30,000 to help her, And not to mention, OP's son postponed his own wedding with his wife to help pay for his stepsister's wedding, which isn't even his biological sister. Oh boy, this story was dark, twisted, and goes so deep. Let me know your thoughts on this story, guys. I would love to hear from you. There were a lot of turning parts of this one, so it can be hard to say exactly what you would have done, but drop your thoughts down below. Let's discuss this one, guys. If any more updates come out for it, you will be the first to know, so make sure you subscribe and I will make a video about it right away. Once again, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed today's content. I know I enjoyed reading this one. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.